Okay, 3, 2, 1. Now we just do the awkward thing where we wait and hope that we are live. And
Okay.
I'm gonna let you pull up YouTube and see if we're live while we wait for everybody. Hi everybody! If you're seeing this,
I believe that we are live. Yes,
we are live.
we are.
Boom! We don't even need that. Hello everybody. Welcome back. I am so thrilled to have back my lovely co-host on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday for Unsolved, which is a new thing that we're going to be doing where we go through different cases that are unsolved. And I'll explain how usually we'll have visual stuff. That's not the case today. I don't know if you can tell, but I am off location. But before I get into that, let's say hello. And it's good to be back. Casey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
So I am off location today. I am spending time with. I'm actually going to let you guys. Do you want to say hey to everybody? Oh, sorry. I'll let you say hey to everybody. Come in here. This is Ben.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi.
Isn't he so handsome?
I'm not a YouTuber, so I'm really nervous right now.
You have the face for it, so it's good. It's good. Okay, so I'm spending a couple days with Ben, so I'm not in my usual studio. So as you can see from the beginning, the bells and whistles weren't there, but Casey and I are here nonetheless, and we're going to be going through a case that is interesting, shocking. It is crazy, but before we do that, as always, let's catch up and see what's going on with Casey. What in the world has been up with you?
I've been really busy with school and stuff. I went on my honeymoon, which I think we've already talked about a little bit. And I'm in my last class of my master's degree. So it's a capstone project. So it's like a group project, the entire course. And so it's going pretty well so far. So I can't wait to be completely finished, and I'm excited. As far as like YouTube and social media and stuff goes, not a whole lot lately just because I've been busy with other stuff. So
not a whole lot lately. I wish I could say the same. Just to confirm though. No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna go there. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, if anybody's out there, your super chats, if you send a super chat, I'm going to read that on Thursday, and I'm getting ready to talk about here in just a second what's going to go on Thursday. I don't have the way that I have things set up right now. I'm literally coming through on my phone connected to a computer so that the vMix will still come through. So I don't really have a chance to check it and bring it up as I normally would. So any super chats that come through, I will read on Thursday's show, or if you want to hold them until Thursday's show, that's completely fine. In the course of the show, I didn't want you to think when we get to the end that I've forgotten about you, because that is not the case. Thursday's show, let me just get that. Now, I said a long time ago, not too long ago, but we've had G-Man on a couple times. He's been in on the after show. He's never actually been on the show. I was contacted by G-Man because he wanted to discuss LGBTQ issues, and this was something that I couldn't really pass up. So I'm going to be joined by Godless Engineer on Thursday. G-Man is going to be here, and we're going to find out what his gripe with the LGBTQ community. I also believe that we're going to touch on slavery in the Bible if we get to that. I don't know if we'll get to that, but that's something else that I think he saw me and GE's show on slavery in the Bible, and so I think he had some issues. Yeah, I think he had some issues with that. But
doesn't he always though? Like always have issues.
I'm secretly. I'm kind of looking forward to Thursday because he made a comment in one of his videos, and I believe it's when he called me out by name, but he said that he doesn't like LGBTQ people don't exist. And
Interesting.
yeah,
That's a weird thing. Like you can disagree and call it a lifestyle and whatever. Like if you want to disagree and whatever, that's fine. But to say that like LGBTQ people don't exist is just that's just a bizarre stance to me.
I can prove to him that we exist. We exist. Right. Okay. So let me pull up my outline here. Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out there at the top? Any other announcements? Anything coming up for you guys?
Not really. Honey, is there anything coming up for us like on the GE channel?
Comments.
Oh, tomorrow is a new comments video. So, and it's pretty funny. I heard John working on it earlier. So there's that coming up tomorrow. And we've got, as usual, Bible studies on Tuesdays. And, you know, that's pretty much it. And you guys have a show on Saturday, right?
We do.
Unbelievable.
You'll have to, the guest for that is somebody that's been here quite a few times. It's a conspiracy show. It's not religious based. You'll just have to make sure that you tune in to see who that is.
Oh, we don't get to find out who the guest is?
Huh?
We don't get to find out who the guest is on Saturday?
Not yet. Not yet. There's a reason though, because when Saturday comes along, you'll understand. But this is somebody that he's not very popular, but every show that he's been on has been he's been on this channel probably 6 times. He's a conspiracy person. I'll give you that hint, but yeah.
Okay. Does John know who it is?
He does.
Okay, so I can get the inside track. All right.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Somebody that John's actually been one
You can't know, but if I know, I can know. All is fine.
I was telling Ben today, and I actually got emotional talking about it. But John talked about it Saturday a little bit about his tribute video, or where the Skeptic Mafia did a sort of a sweet thing for him. How was that like for you watching that and seeing them sort of give him those accolades?
Well, it wasn't actually just him. I don't know if you've watched it, but it was also to me too. And it was surprising. I didn't know that it was happening. Usually when people do stuff for GE, they're like, hey, can you help us, whatever. Well, this time they didn't do that. So it was a surprise to me too. And I kept seeing, like, John was starting off his stream, and I kept seeing in the chat a bunch of people post a link, and they're like, hey, watch this, Skeptic Mafia is taking over. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I click on the link to see what it is. And it was, John clicked on it too, and he saw it was 11 minutes, and he was like, well, watch it after. But like, I kept looking at it, and then Not Your Witness comes up on the screen, and he's like, what's up, heathens, how y'all doing? And he starts talking, and I'm like, what is this? And so I was like, John, you might want to watch this. I don't care how long it is. You might want to do that. I don't know what it is, but you might want to. So, so, you know, we're watching through it, and we see all these, there are some creators and some people who are followers, some people who are all of them are part of the Skeptic Mafia, and which is, if you don't know, the Skeptic Mafia is GE's members, like channel members and patrons, and that's what we call, thanks to Dean Esme. That was from him. He called it, he called us all Skeptic Mafia.
Let me stop right there. Did you just give a shout out to Dean Esme?
I did. You're welcome. But that's where it came from, was from Dean. And so we took a hold of the Skeptic Mafia and made it our own. And so now it was really, really awesome. And I mean, as you know, it's been a rough couple of months with a lot of things going on. And I just hearing them and how you know, we've impacted their lives was really awesome, like really, really awesome. And one of the things that touches me the most is hearing all of them at their sign off would say, don't forget to stand up and use your voice. And I know you all have probably heard that quite a bit if you've watched me or GE. But that is actually something personal from my life that came from a situation that I was in where I was basically told in order to go to a family function, that I needed to, I used to wear this bracelet, and the only reason I don't wear it anymore is because it's broken. And it said, I'm an atheist on one side and I'm an ally on the other. And it was a rainbow bracelet that came from a gay pride event. And so it has since broke. It was one of those rubber bracelets. And so when I would wear that, and I was asked in order to go to a family function to take it off, which seems like a small ask, but it was because of religious family members that were coming. So I was being asked to hide who I was. And, my entire life I had been told to, be quiet and be seen, not heard. And I mean, that's kind of how I was raised. And I was like, no. And so I told the particular family member, who was one of my favorite people in the entire world, and afterward thought about it and apologized and totally made it fine after. But I said, no. I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm not going to sit over here in a corner and be quiet. So stand up, use your voice came from that. And actually, right after that happened, I got a tattoo that says stand up. So I have stand up on my arm for that. And so that was born that way. And so it means a lot to me when I hear it inspiring other people to get involved in the community, or to not even in the community, but just to be more vocal in their own lives and take control and not let people tell them to shut up and color or sit in a corner and be quiet because you're not like everybody else. Like, the fact that it inspires people to do that, it really, it means a whole lot to me. And so, of course, John and I both cried when we were watching the video. And so it was awesome and I loved it. And our Skeptic Mafia is the best. So that was a very long story. I'm so sorry.
No, that was absolutely amazing. I'm over here trying to not tear up myself. I think that like you said, it's been a crazy couple of months, but you can't lose sight, I don't think, of the fact that with your Facebook group and the YouTube videos, like the countless people that you two have personally touched. And you just heard from the people who, came forward and put that video together. There are probably thousands of people who, weren't part of that video and that you've, touched. I know that, personally, me, I don't know what in the world I would do without either one of you. I love you two, like, you're like family to me. So, I mean, just on a personal level, the two of you have impacted my life in immeasurable ways. So I think that it's great that they did that, and both of you definitely deserved it. I don't think there's two more deserving people of that. So, and I will say this: you are the reason that I am addicted to Jordan almonds.
Did you like that 5-pound bag I sent you for your birthday?
Is it bad that I ate the entire bag like after
oh my God, have you already?
The whole thing was
my goodness.
Have you ever had a Jordan almond? How would you I don't even know, how would you describe a Jordan almond? And then I promise we'll get to the story, but if you haven't tried a Jordan almond, I promise your life's about to change. So I'm going to let Casey describe what a Jordan almond is, and then we'll get into the story.
Well, so it's basically like a candy coated almond. I mean, it's really hard candy, and it's basically just sugar. It doesn't have really, I don't know, maybe vanilla flavor, I guess, but it's just like a vanilla candy coating around an almond. And definitely if you get them and try them, don't bite into them right away because you'll break your teeth off. You got to suck on them for a little while so they get softer, but so you can bite on them.
Wink.
Which is not normally the way that works.
My face is turning red. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the disappearance of Susan Powell. Now, this is so crazy and it has many different to it, and we're gonna go back and forth with the different. He's gonna kind of give you a background of the dad involved. I'm gonna start out with just sort of some overview of case. Susan, her name was Susan Cox, was technically a missing, even though the police have classified her as deceased. As you'll see and we'll get to, not been found. Her body has not been, and everyone involved in this story to be able to sort of give any inclination of where her body is dead. And it's a story. It traverses lives, it impacts, and half of those that are impacted are completely innocent. That's the hard thing that we're gonna tackle tonight. There are 6 parties that are mainly in this story. 3 of completely innocent. 3 of those sort of paint dark picture, as you'll see. Now, difference.
Kyle, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
Am I?
I don't know. I don't think you can do anything about it though.
Yeah, probably not.
You're doing it
for about now?
That seems a little bit better, but your screen's a little bit frozen. I don't know if it's lag or if it's just connection. I'm not sure.
It might be the connection.
Your voice sounds better though.
Okay. Well, everybody knows what I look like.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll just go with that. Now, Susan, actually, Casey, do you want to start with we were talking before about the Church of Latter-day Saints position and how the 2 of them were met, and then when you get to where they moved into the father-in-law, I'll explain what he did.
Okay, so it's interesting. The husband, Susan Powell's husband, is Josh Powell, and if any of you missed the stuff that Kyle was saying, Susan Powell is missing, right? She's presumed dead, but she's not been declared dead, right?
Right.
Because they've never found a body, so she's considered missing. It's a unsolved case, and it's a cold case. So her husband, Josh Powell, when he was a kid, he had a really interesting relationship with his father, who Kyle's going to talk a little bit more about. The father didn't really impose any rules or guidelines on his sons. And his parents had a really terrible marriage. His dad, they shared pornography and things like that. When he was a teenager, apparently he would kill gerbils that belonged to his sister, which is pretty sociopathic and fucked up. He threatened his mother with a butcher knife and attempted suicide on at least 1 occasion. So he didn't have a very stable childhood and was kind of fucked up, right? So before he met or married Susan, he had a relationship with another woman whose name was Catherine, and they were at the same. I think he went to an LDS, and a Church of Latter-day Saints. They were Mormon, and he went to a religious school, a Mormon school. I guess they don't use Mormon anymore, do they? They just
I think
use
yeah,
saints.
yeah, LDS.
Yeah. So he went to the University of Washington, but he met her, Catherine, at a local LDS ward, and they moved into an apartment together. Well, so he was extremely controlling with her to the point where she wasn't even allowed to see her family without him. And so that obviously became a significant problem with their relationship. And so she decided to go to visit a friend in Utah without Josh, and basically just never went back. And she called him and broke up with him on the phone. So he has a history, had a history of issues with women, issues with, sociopathy, issues with relationships with other people, and obviously mental issues himself, since he tried to commit suicide. So, and then, you want me to talk about how he met Susan?
Yeah, and I don't want you to think that I'm like I figured out what's going on with my thing. My phone is getting ready to die, so I'm gonna switch locations real quick just so that I can plug it up, and
Oh, okay.
you should be able to hear me better. So I'm just gonna
Okay.
move while you're talking.
Okay. So, Matt, will you mute it? I'll just wait. Okay. So Josh met Susan, who was a classmate of his at the LDS Institute of Religion, during a dinner party, and they began a relationship and ended up getting married, obviously. So it talks a little bit about their jobs and stuff like that, which really doesn't matter, but they had two sons, one that was born in 2005 and one that was born in 2007. After they got married, for a short period of time, they lived with his dad, Josh's dad, the one that was, sharing porn with his sons and everything else. And so at this point, and I don't know where Kyle went, but at this point, the father, his name's Stephen, he kind of developed an obsession with Susan, and she didn't know about it at first. He admitted it later, which we'll get into, but he followed her around their house with a camcorder, and would record her without her knowledge. When she was in the bathroom, he would use little mirrors to spy on her, and he stole her underwear from her laundry and read her journal. She did a lot of adult journaling, which we're going to talk a bit about, because they matter in this case quite a bit. And I'm echoing like a crazy person. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can. His phone probably died. So, can you guys still hear me? So she didn't know any of this, but he read her journals, and he would get online and post love songs about her and to her with a pseudonym. So she didn't know that it was him.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Welcome back.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, poor Jonathan Powell in the chat. Hi. he says there's a guy in the chat, Jonathan Powell, and he says no relation. So
love it.
I don't know if you could hear me at all, but I kind of went through the stuff that the dad was doing while she was in the house.
I can't hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll pick up with I'm gonna have to stand up here. Sorry about that. My phone died, and that's why it was sluggish. So it should be like no lag now. You're able to see me and hear me okay?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So Stephen Powell, they moved in with he moved in with his family with their dad for a little bit, and the dad had over a course of it was 9 months, I believe. He sort of got an obsession with Susan, and he would record her without her knowledge. Have you talked about this yet, Casey, about how he would look at her diary? And
Yeah, so I talked because I sort of we kind of ran out of stuff to talk about with the before stuff. So yeah, I kind of went through some of the stuff that was going on with them while she was in the house.
sure, did you get to the confrontation where he told her about his
No.
Okay.
Well,
So it kind of
just said I just said
Go
that
ahead.
he eventually confessed it, but go ahead.
Okay. So it came to a head. They had a sort of a confrontation where he approached her and expressed his love for his daughter-in-law. Now, I've had the pleasure of meeting GE's dad, and just like his son for the world. I mean, they are two peas in a pod. How creepy would it be for you if, like, how would you handle that situation? Like, just let's play hypothetical. If he came to you and said that he was, which is what happened because he had a recording of it, and you can find that on YouTube. It is on YouTube. How creepy would that be for you?
I think it would be pretty awkward. I mean, obviously, I would. I would be super uncomfortable if it was us talking just me and him, obviously, and I would certainly try to bring John in if he was around. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That would be a very awkward situation, and it would be shocking. And like I said, I don't know a better word than incredibly awkward.
Now, there's no indication about like what the son thought about this event happening. I'm going to pull up a bar stool here. I know that it wasn't long after he expressed his love for his daughter-in-law that they moved out.
Right.
Now, the daughter-in-law, Susan, let me pull up the notes here. The way that the disappearance happened is this. The dad was arrested or the father-in-law, excuse me. The father-in-law was arrested and sent to prison for voyeurism. They found out that he had recorded not only Susan, but several different women without their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to prison. During this time, the sons and this is so confusing to try to keep up with the different players. The son, Joshua.
Yes. Susan's husband.
Susan's husband. They were reported missing on a Sunday. They were supposed to meet with a friend from church. When they didn't show, the friend from church got worried and called the police. Now, the police went over first to try to investigate, and there was nobody at the house. Later that night, Joshua came back with his two sons. And when police interviewed Joshua, his story was that Susan was at home when he left and that him and the two sons were going camping. When the police interviewed the children said that mommy went with them. Oh, that's Thomas. He's getting happy. The children went with them, but mommy didn't come back with them. So they got sort of a difference in the stories there. Did you want to say something, Casey?
Oh no, just Francesca in the comments. She's adding some details. Because she knows a little bit about this. She said that there are
Sure.
rumors that Josh, the husband, that his dad, who was obsessed with Susan, that his dad's dad, so Josh's grandfather, might have might have molested him. So there were rumors about that. Also, she said that he had child porn on his computer. The dad did.
The dad did.
Stephen, the father-in-law.
Stephen, the father-in-law. I believe
Yes.
that. If you can go on YouTube and you can find some of these videos. There are some people that have these videos on there. The only reason that I'm not showing them is because one YouTuber that showed a lot of these videos had some legal issues with the family, showing some of these family videos. So I didn't even want to go down that road. I think the story on its own stands for itself. But fast forwarding, and thank you for that information. Who did you say that was? Francesca?
Yep.
Thank you, Francesca.
Yep, Francesca.
Appreciate that. So fast forwarding, the dad's the Stephen, who is the father-in-law, he's in prison. Now the dad loses custody of his two sons, and he's allowed visits from them. And for the first, I think, 3 months, it goes fine. It comes to a visit where the social worker brings the kids to Joshua, and Joshua is very standoffish with the social worker, and he winds up essentially closing the social worker out of the house. Meanwhile, he's got his two kids in. The social worker is trying to get in. She's calling, trying to get some backup on the situation. The house explodes. So Joshua essentially killed himself and his two kids in this explosion. And if you look on the thumbnail, that picture in the back with the flames on the trailer is literally the picture, and you can Google it. It's a very, very, very like grisly scene, especially when you have the firemen that are putting out the flames the next day. I mean, it's just a really, really, really humbling picture. Have you seen it, Casey?
I mean, I saw the thumbnail, but I didn't pay them. I didn't pay much attention to it, and no, I haven't seen the picture. I saw a picture of the house after, like with the but after the flames are, out. But I have a question before you continue.
Sure.
So the kids were allowed to visit him, but they had supervised visits.
Correct.
Okay, and the kids were taken away from him because the
I
stories
think they were
didn't
taken away from him during the course of the investigation. I think that while he was being investigated, from what I read, it's not really clear on essentially like why they were taken away. Just that during the course of the investigation, social services set in. I don't know if the dad took a sort of a downward spiral and wasn't able to maybe take care of them the way that they should have been. That's what I get out of it. I'll read this real quick. Let me pull this up. On February the 5th, 2012, social worker Elizabeth Griffin called 911 after bringing Charlie and Braden to a supervised visit at Joshua's house in South Hill, who was supposed to monitor the visit between Joshua and the boys. It was reported that he then grabbed them and would not let her in the door. Soon thereafter, the house exploded, killing Joshua and the two children. Local authorities treated the case as a double murder-suicide, saying that the act appeared to have been deliberate. When authorities notified Stephen, which is the father-in-law who was in jail at the time,
in prison. Right.
He didn't seem very upset by the news, but was angry towards the authorities who notified him. 2 weeks later, Stephen invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to answer questions about the Susan Powell case. Cox and others have stated they believe that Stephen knew what exactly happened to Susan. Stephen was convicted, like I said, of voyeurism, in a trial which largely skirted the issue of Susan's case. So here's something interesting too, and I forgot to mention this, but this I think is the worst detail of this entire case. After an investigation, officials confirmed that the explosion had been deliberately planned. The official cause of death, though, for Joshua and the two boys was determined to be carbon monoxide poisoning, though the coroner also noted that both children had significant chopping injuries about the head and neck. A hatchet was recovered near Joshua's body, and investigators believe he attacked the boys with it before being overwhelmed by the smoke and the fumes of the fire.
Why?
I
didn't see that part. Like, I just knew he blew them up, and I thought he just blew them up. And I mean, like, that's bad enough, but like, at least that would be quick. Like, I just thought
no.
those
He took
kids.
a hatchet to the boys. I don't know, like I can't even begin to sort of, you can't even put your mindset in with somebody that could do something like that. But not only did he plan to blow himself up, but he took a hatchet to his own kids. I mean, that takes a monster to do.
People are fucking crazy, Kyle. People are crazy.
Yeah.
And like,
here's
mental
another thing.
illness is a serious problem.
Yep. Friends and relatives of Joshua also told authorities that he had contacted them by email minutes before the incident to say goodbye. Some of them, including his pastor, received instructions about finding his money and shutting off his utilities. Records also showed that he had withdrawn $7,000 from his bank account and had donated his children's toys and books to local charities the day before the incident. Joshua named Michael as the main beneficiary of his life insurance policy. So, like, he had this plan. Like, this was something obviously that he had planned for days in advance, even going as far as to donate his children's toys and clothing to charities in the area.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So I mentioned there briefly the name Michael. Now, Michael Powell is his brother. And the reason that he is pertinent to this case is because on February the 11th of 2013, this is approximately 1 year after the death of Joshua and his sons, Michael, his brother, takes his own life in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Sorry about that. Where he had moved for graduate school. He jumped from the roof of a parking garage. Police had questioned Michael several times in 2012. After discovering his abandoned Ford at the Oregon wrecking yard, Michael was evasive about why he left the car at that location. Utah authorities have since said they believe that Joshua and Michael were accomplices in the murder of Susan. So basically what they're saying here is that they're putting the pieces together. And the kids also, just to recap, when the kids gave an account of that night that they went camping, mom went with them camping, didn't come back, but they were with somebody in a van. Now, authorities have put together that it's more than likely Michael and Joshua who did something with Susan. And I mean, if you think about it, this is the obvious answer, right? Because the two of them commit suicide not long after this disappearance.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that it was motivated at all by the fact that the dad, or Stephen, his father, had this obsession with Susan?
No, I don't think that at all. I think that Joshua and Michael were damaged from their childhood. I think they were damaged from their indoctrination. Obviously, religion played a role in this because they were, I mean, not necessarily in the murder or anything like that, but in their mindsets and in the type of people that they were, because they did go to these groups. That's where they met. They were very controlling of women, which is a very common thing in more fundamental religions like LDS. Not to say that all of them are like that or anything, but the more fundamentalist you get. Plus, LDS is kind of a weird one anyway. Like,
Yeah.
not on the level of like Scientology, but it's weird. If you don't know a whole lot about it, you might want to look into it. LDS is kind of odd. So I think it had more to do with the fact that he was mentally disturbed. Clearly something was wrong. He had a mental illness. And when a teenager or a child is killing pets or other animals for literally no reason other than to just do it, those are indications of mental illness. And he was very controlling and abusive. I think this had more to do with his personality and possible issue, like mental issues with him. Well, obvious mental issues with him, but possible disorders. I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist, but to me, I think this is a man who was controlling and abusive in various ways, and that had more to do with it than anything. I don't think it really had anything to do with that. I mean, they shared porn. I don't think that had anything to do with it.
I agree, but like, what an unlucky lottery did Susan draw to not only end up in a situation, where she's going to get murdered and the accomplice is going to be her brother-in-law, but on top of that, to be stalked and recorded and violated like her father-in-law did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so creepy.
It's definitely she was definitely in a difficult situation. This stuff went on for years. Like Josh's behavior was bad. Like, he was a terrible husband. She got in really bad fights with him, and she would journal all of that. She actually, and I don't have the original that you sent me about this, but she would write down everything that happened. And then she also had a friend who she invited over after a really bad fight, because her friend did this like shorthand that she learned in school. And she had her friend go through and take notes and do shorthand to, make an account of what happened. She kept these journals at her place of work. And she also, at her place of work, wrote a last will and testament and put it in a safety deposit box that Josh didn't know about. And she put in her journals, if something happens to me, even if it looks like an accident, it wasn't. It was my husband. And she knew what kind of person he was. And so they had a long history of really bad problems in their marriage, and she knew the kind of person that he was. And they found the investigators found all of this stuff. So, I mean, I wish she would have gotten herself out of the situation, but she also talked about her kids. So anybody who might suggest that, well, maybe she just left, she wouldn't, based on, in my opinion, she wouldn't have left without her kids. She wouldn't have left them in that situation. So there's no way she left, in my opinion.
I agree. And like I said at the beginning, this has since been classified as a homicide case. Susan's case overall is not a missing person case, even though they have not found any remains or any sign of Susan. They are treating this as a homicide and a closed case on that front. Just a quick note: Stephen Powell, who is the father-in-law, was released from prison on July the 11th of 2017 after he served 7 years for voyeurism and child pornography. He then died of natural causes in Tacoma, Washington on July 23rd, 2018. So he was out for a year and then he passed away. But as I said earlier, when he was informed about even his son and his grandkids murders, suicide double murder, he showed no emotion, and he got mad at the guards that informed him of this. So literally everybody that let me ask you this, Casey. Do you think that maybe he wasn't involved, but do you think Stephen Powell knew that his sons did this to Susan?
Perhaps. I mean, even if he didn't know, like, for sure, certainly he had an idea. I mean, so Josh Powell, he was a really, I mean, he'd even asked people that he knew in Western Utah how to hide a body in a mine shaft. Like, this guy was not really quiet or secretive about the kind of creeper that he was. So he, and you know, they found traces of her blood in their house. The investigators did when they went to search their house. Joshua had a $1.5 million life insurance policy for Susan. And there's just so many weird things. And I think that Stephen, the father-in-law, the one that was in prison, I think he probably knew without being told. You know what I mean? Like, he had to know what kind of men his sons were.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It reminds me of there was a case. Have you ever seen Forensic Files? You ever seen that show?
Yeah, it's an older show though, right?
Very old, very old. But
it's been a long
there
time.
was it raises a question with me about the sort of, like, to be able to murder somebody and murder not only your wife but the mother of your kids. It takes like a certain mind frame. But there was one Forensic Files that I saw where this guy had went boating, and his wife was discovered dead while he was boating. So that was his alibi, that he was, he wasn't there, he was out. And an investigator took note that he had put in a wall unit air conditioner in the room, which slowed down significantly the amount of decay that the body could have gone through. So what it essentially did was it extended his alibi. But in the VCR, there was a movie where that exact scenario took place. So what this husband had done was he had watched this movie where somebody had turned the air conditioner down low, and he does it and gets caught that way. Like, they're
Unbelievable.
not, they're not secretive about it. But anyway, so Susan is still missing. There is a petition going out to have her. I guess she hasn't been officially declared dead. There are calls as of March 18th to have her declared dead, with the cause being homicide. Maybe it is. Maybe they haven't closed it yet. But she, as to this day, remains a missing person. And so that's basically the plot of the shows that we're going to do on Tuesday. So we're going to be taking cases that are unsolved and explaining them and sort of going in detail with a lot more visuals going forward than this one. But I saw this case on another channel, and I was just blown away by this, and the people with the subreddit Unsolved By the way, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do that. It's the subreddit called Unsolved, and all it is threads of different cases that will just blow your mind. I mean, the way that, like I said earlier, the pieces of this story where you had somebody that not only was stalked and obsessed over by their father-in-law winds up, in this case, not only losing her life, but both of her innocent kids' lives in a very tragic way, getting hacked to death with a hatchet and then blown up, and then the dad's brother, the father's brother, Michael, killing himself. Just a tragic story.
And I don't know if you know this, but their sister, the one that Joshua used to kill, her gerbils, she told police that she thought that Joshua had something to do with it. Because certainly growing up with him, she knew what kind of person he was. And when you talk about just to give you guys a little bit of perspective about recording and stalking her, when the police raided the father-in-law's house and confiscated the computer, he had 4,500 images of her.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And so it's really shocking how fucked up this whole entire thing was. And I wish that she could have gotten out of this situation. She knew. And that's the hardest part for me, is that she knew that this was headed in this direction. She knew it so much that she wrote it down. She had shit notarized and hid it so that when she went missing, or when she had an accident, or when something happened, that people knew that it was him. So I mean, she went through all of that, so she knew. And I just wish she could have gotten out of it. And I have to wonder why she didn't. She had parents, and it's hard for me to fathom being in this kind of fucked up situation and not getting out. You know what I mean? That's hard for me to fathom.
There was an instance where, and like I said, you can feel free to search these videos. I didn't want to show any of them because of the family maybe getting involved in that, but there are channels that do have these videos of different portions of where Stephen would record her, and there's one where he would sort of keep this like audio diary almost, and he talks about a scenario where she came home one day and she was really tired, and he offered to rub her feet for her, and he goes on and on about she let me rub her feet. I know I was aroused. I think that she was aroused by the situation too, and he was just completely separated from reality. Like, yes, I think that it did happen where, she may have let him rub her feet, but the aroused part, or where she was like reciprocating anything that he was putting out there, I think is just delusional. But he was obsessed with her, like to a frightening level. I mean, it was sick.
Yeah, it's horrible, and it's so sad that she couldn't get out. It's sad that we have significant mental health problems in this country. I mean, significant. Absolutely. And we don't have, a lot of people don't have either, not that they don't have access, but when you're priced out, or it's not, because it's very expensive, and if it's not part of your insurance, it's very difficult for people who need mental health, and not only just like therapy, but also medications and stuff like that. It's frustrating because it's the cause of so many problems like this, also problems like shootings. And I know I hate guns, so I'm not a kind of person who says it's mental illness, not guns. It's both. And so it's really horrible that these kind of situations get to this point. It should never have gotten to this point ever.
I agree. Let me ask you this question, since you brought that up about guns, and since that's sort of in the in the media now. I think I would say that for the majority of my life, I would have agreed with you 100% on the gun thing. Like, they're not, I respect people who have, who want to have guns. They're not necessarily for me, but in this day and age, and the way that things are going, and the way that you can't even go to Walmart now or anything like that. Do you think that you personally, is it advisable, or would you advise that people maybe have some sort of protection? And I go by the saying, like, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, especially with the acceleration and the rate at which we're having these sort of gun instances. What's your take on that now? Has that altered it in any way?
No, absolutely not. In fact, it's made my position. I'm even stronger in my position. I do understand that things happen anywhere, everywhere. If you need something to protect yourself, what I would recommend, if you feel the need for that, is like a taser or something like that. I do understand that if you go into a situation where this person has an AR-15 and you have a taser, you are going to lose that fight. But
sure,
I guess for me,
it's tough.
Well, so if there's an active shooter event and you have a gun and you pull out your gun and the police come there, they are probably going to shoot you, because when situations like that happen, they don't necessarily have all of the details. They're looking for a person with a gun. And so the whole good guy with a gun theory doesn't hold water. It doesn't. And so, and it happens. I mean, it's happened. You've seen it in the news where the good guy with the gun got killed by the police. And so it's just, it's difficult. It is a difficult situation. I understand. But at the same time, I think it's more detrimental for people to have all of these guns in public. It's totally unnecessary.
I think we've, like you said, it's such a difficult situation. Like, I think we've just royally fucked ourselves in America with the gun situation, because there are so many guns out there now. I think somebody can correct me, but I don't think I'm misrepresenting this statistic. And please, somebody correct me if so. But I believe that there are 4 guns to every 1 person in the United States. I believe that is an accurate statistic. And I think with that scenario, I was talking with somebody the other day, and solutions on this, like how do we fix this? And somebody brought the point, well, you could do gun buyback programs and that sort of thing. But if you did that, I feel like the only people that would be turning in guns are the people that probably should have the guns, and the bad people are always going to hold on to those guns. So you're sort of lopsiding the sides here. I just think we're so fucked on this issue that there's no clear answer. I mean, how do we stop these mass shootings, and how do we tone down the rate at which they're happening? I mean, is there a solution to this? I know this is way off topic, but it's a very topical.
I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I do think that there are things we can do without. I do believe in the Constitution, and I do think that just like any of the other rights that we have and the amendments should be protected. So I do think we should protect the Second Amendment. I don't think that somebody should go and collect all the guns. I personally hate guns and I won't have them, but I'm not about to say that someone else can't have them. However, I don't believe that the Second Amendment says that we can't limit the types of guns that private citizens can have. You have to, when you're evaluating, from the court perspective, from a legal perspective, when you're evaluating these, amendments that were written so long ago, you have to try to interpret them how they intended them to be, with also taking into account the changes in society since. So you can limit the types of guns. I mean, right now there are already types of guns that people can't have. Nobody is allowed to have a fully automatic weapon. You can't have, like, people can't have military, you can't own a tank. Like, you know what I mean?
Hold on.
Like, there are
Baby, hide the tank. Pull the tank in the garage. We can't have the tank. No tank. No tank.
no tanks. Yeah.
I
So, like,
I completely agree with everything that you're saying there. I think that when that was written, you're looking at a time where people had musket balls, and it took forever, you know, to bite the pack, shove it down the rifle, and, you know, light it and fire it. They didn't have these sort of automatic weapons. And what do you need an assault rifle for?
Well, you also have to consider that at that time, when the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written, at that time, the people, citizens, had the same guns that the military had.
Sure.
So
Yep.
that's not the case anymore, and it shouldn't be the case anymore. And so,
No.
but the whole idea is a little bunk that that people should be allowed to own guns because of having a, you know, militia, you know, to be able to have
Sure.
your militia, and here to basically protect citizens from the government. So if the citizens have to overthrow the government because the government is out of control, they can. But the problem is that's not possible. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Never gonna
the
happen.
whole idea of militias being able to overthrow the government if the government gets out of control is bunk. That's not going to happen.
Agreed.
So that idea is just it's old, and you can't base anything off of that.
I agree. And, you know, I think that this is a very divisive issue, but I think that the issue is that we don't have the conversation. You know what I mean? Like, every time this happens, both sides sort of like hold true to their, you know, their points, and there's no conversation about what we can actually do to fix this. And that's what I think is leading to a bunch of, you know, the accelerated rate is because we come out in full force when these tragedies happen, and we say the right things, but there's no action. You know, like, this is something that is happening on a cyclical basis. I mean, it's nearly every day that you're turning on the news and you're seeing a mass shooting, and the talking points are always the same. You know, both sides are always sort of just poised in their corners, but there's never any action on it. And I think it's because we are just so fucked on this issue that no one knows the first step on how to fix it. And I mean, what do you do? I mean,
I don't know, but there are a couple people in the chat that are saying that you can own tanks and fully automatic weapons. You just have to go through legal processes. I don't know what those are, so if I'm wrong on that, fine. But the point, here's the point. The point is,
I love the chat, by the way. Chat, you're the best chat ever. we can't have the tank. Go ahead and take it out of the garage. Move the tank back out.
Yeah, you can have the tank in the driveway. It's fine. But the point is that it's fine to limit the types of weapons that private citizens can have. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and it's proven to work in other in many other countries. And so, you know, in Australia, for example, you're allowed to have shotguns and you're allowed to have rifles. There's a limit to how many bullets your gun can hold at one time. Your handguns are illegal so far as I know, but they have restrictions on it, but you can still have a rifle for hunting and a shotgun for home protection. And they have, and maybe we don't have that strong of limits, but I don't see how the Second Amendment can be interpreted as that we can't have any type of restrictions on guns. And
Yeah.
I think it was Francesca I saw makes a really good point. Get the NRA out of government. That is the main. Yes, that is the main hiccup in any kind of gun regulation, is that the politicians are afraid to piss off the NRA because the NRA gives them a lot of money to run. And I don't know if anybody has noticed, but it takes a lot of money to be able to run for public office in this country. Normal, everyday people can't run for office anymore because you can't afford to. And so certainly if you're Republican, you need the NRA's rating in order to get elected. And so they're not going to do anything about it until we get that kind of shit out of politics.
Francesca, by the way, you get a gold star today because this is the second time that you've made really good points. But I think
George said that Schwarzenegger has a tank. That Arnold Schwarzenegger had his own tank. George in the chat said that Arnold Schwarzenegger had his own tank from when he was in the Austrian army and had it transported here in California.
Only in America. Only in America. Here's the thing, though. Like, Francesca brings up a good point, and I said this with not this past week, but the week before with Mr. Atheist. The issue with the government today is lobbyists. Lobbyists are the complete. They cause so much disaster. When you talk about the pharmaceutical industry, the oil industry, the NRA, all of these special interest groups that lobby and throw money at Congress to vote a specific way, in a way that is oftentimes counter to what is beneficial to their districts. You know what I mean? Like, they'll accept this money, spin it off like it's some, it's some bill that needs to happen. And the losers are us. Like, the losers are the kids that have to do drills now. Like, when I went to school, we had fire drills, we had tornado drills. There was no such thing as a active shooter drill. And the fact that kids today have to deal with active shooter drills, I think we have to just take a step back in this country and ask ourselves, is the fact that you can have a high capacity magazine worth being okay and being comfortable with your kids doing active shooter drills? And I don't think that an honest person can say, yeah, that's worth it.
Well, so I'm less perturbed by active shooter drills than I am about the fact that companies literally sell bulletproof backpacks. Like that's a yes, and they cost a lot. Okay, so they cost between I think the cheapest ones I've seen were like just over $100, and so between $100 and $400. So basically, if your parents make a lot of money, you can afford to get a bulletproof backpack to protect yourself from guns in schools. Like, that is so it makes my blood boil. Like, truly, it upsets me.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, that's what we're like. That's something that we're okay with in this country. And I saw on the news the other day, they were going through this. It was sort of like a setup classroom, but this guy had invented this material that absorbs the bullets that assault rifles shoot. And I don't know anything about guns, so people in the chat will know a lot more than me about the calibers and stuff like that. But it would withstand the caliber, and they're desktops. So they're making desktops now where you can flip them over, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is a really, really good idea in today's environment. But the fact that we have to make desktops that can be converted into barricades from assault rifles, I think is disgusting.
Well, see, here's the thing. Private companies are doing that because nobody's doing anything about the guns. Nobody's doing anything about the guns. Nobody's doing anything about mental health. Nobody's doing anything about the factors that cause the underlying factors that cause these kind of incidents.
Absolutely.
So it's private companies, and there's, I understand why they're jumping in and, you know, filling this gap. It's upsetting. I'm not upset with the company. The situation is upsetting, because, you know, but it does really upset me though that the backpacks cost so much, because it's basically like, well, if your parents don't make good money, then you're fucked. Basically, you can get shot, but the rich kids won't get shot. You know what I mean? Like, that's just,
yeah. Isn't that the thing about everything in this country? And I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but everything is designed in a way that if you're poor, you're fucked. Medications,
yeah,
healthcare, mental health,
credit.
These situations. If jail, like I talked a month ago about, there are city ordinances in this country where you can own private property, and if you don't have blinds on your windows, the city, I believe it was in Minnesota, but there's a city ordinance that'll come through. They will hit you for not having blinds on your windows, and that gets converted into a criminal offense. You get caught up in the wheel of the criminal justice system, and they rape you when it comes to the fees, the fines, the penalties. If they don't hit you on the, you know, this is a civil infraction, they convert it over to a criminal infraction, and you get caught up in the wheel. And all of these different policies, all of these different stances, all of these different industries, they're fine if you're rich, but if you are poor, you're fucked, period.
Yeah. And that's true. And it's getting worse. I mean, the more money we have in politics and the more wealthy people that we have in the government, the more they're going to pass laws that are, you know, that help them and the people that they know and the people that they're comfortable with. And, you know, they pass laws like here in Alabama, they did a interesting thing where they were closing all of the DMVs except for I think there were going to be 4 in the entire state. This was the plan. And at the same time, they passed a law that said that you had to have a ID in order to vote, like a driver's license. You had to have a government issued ID in order to vote, and which I don't have a problem with. I actually have no problem with requiring an ID, to a photo ID government issued to vote. My problem is when you make it difficult for everyone to be able to get one of those. And if you make it to where somebody has to drive 2, 3, 4 hours, and you have to do it during the week, obviously. So if you work, you're fucked, right? Because the offices are only open during the week, and you have to wait for hours because they only have 4 offices in the entire state. So they just make it very difficult. They ended up I don't remember who ended up suing the state over it, but they didn't close all of the DMVs. Now you do have to have a picture ID to vote, but you know, if you make it to where in other states there are, you know, similar limiting laws. So if you have a situation where you make it difficult for a person that is poor to vote, then they're not going to be able to cast their vote for the person that they think has their best interests in mind. Sure. So it's a really, the way the system is set up now is set up for certainly for the wealthier people to be able to make it, the not wealthy people to be able to make it, and the gap between the two is growing.
Agreed. Amen. Wow. I really got into that the political speak there.
I know.
Do you have anything else that you want to tag on before we close out and say goodbye?
I don't think so. I mean, we did the Susan thing, but then we did a whole bunch of other stuff. So we kind of went all around the world today.
I could get into the political talk all day. I think we really have to take a look, especially with this election. We have to really take a look at ourselves and decide who we want to be, you know, going forward. I think a lot rides on this next election, and I think we really, really, really have to check ourselves and decide what kind of country that we want to be. And so, yeah, I'm nervous about this this coming election, because I think that, you know,
Me
even though there's a lot of good
Me too. It
candidates,
also, yeah, there are. It
Go ahead.
makes me a little nervous how far ahead of everybody Joe Biden is, and I have to wonder why. I haven't picked my person yet. I try to I try not to start until a year out because it'll just drive me nuts.
Sure.
Plus, John and I normally live tweet debates, but not yet. A year out and on, we do live tweeting of debates, and we do a little more political stuff during those times. But yeah, it is a little nerve-wracking. When it comes to elections and politicians, I think one of the most important things that we could do for our country that might help solve a lot of things is I think we need term limits on Congress.
yes,
There's no reason,
yes,
there's literally no reason why someone like Mitch McConnell should be able to continue to be elected and hold up the government. It's like he's a single point of failure in our entire
absolutely.
government. And no
Absolutely. I
one
don't
in
think
this
you could.
country should have that much power. No one.
That's the single best action we can take as a country is to put term limits on Congress. It will encourage them to act, because you're not going to be as much concerned about maybe a controversial vote if it's your last term and you know it, than if you're facing election after election after election. It will also enable you to actually do your job instead of having to worry about every so many years campaigning.
They're constantly running. They're constantly running for office. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but like senators and representatives have a certain number of hours per week. And I think it's like maybe 20 hours per week or something like that, maybe 20 to 30. I can't remember exactly, but they have a certain number of hours per week that they are required to call for to get donors and ask for donations and all this other kind of shit. Stop with the money in the politics, put term limits on those sons of bitches, and we might actually get some work done.
I think that is the perfect note to end on right there. I think that's the best advice. And this is not an election. I'll say this too. This is not an election to try to push the third party narrative. You know, this is not an election to try to stand on your principles with, we need a third party in this country, because it's not going to happen this election. And a vote for a third party is a vote for Donald Trump. You can guarantee it. So just really think about what kind of country we want to be.
I don't think the two-party system works anymore, but
Agreed.
I also agree with what you're saying. We really need to take this election. And so we really need the right person in there. And I'm not sure that person is Joe Biden. But I have to.
The reason that Joe Biden is in the lead is because he pulls from the middle. He's that Scranton, blue collar type of Democrat that pulls those questionables from Trump. So if you, for example, if you have somebody that's in the middle of the road, they don't like what Trump's doing, they don't agree with the things that he says, they think he's a nasty guy, but they also don't want a far out left progressive coming in.
They don't want to listen to Warren.
Trying to think that they can police their speech or take their guns away. They're going to go with Joe because Joe's just like them. He flashes that smile. He's a blue collar guy from Scranton. So he's able to pull those questionables that really don't like Trump, but they know that they're going to be okay with Joe because he's not going to rock the boat too much.
Yeah, but I think, and I think the problem is that we need somebody like Joe that's not Joe, but that's further left than Joe.
We need Bernie.
And
we need Bernie.
I did in the last election, in the primary is really where my vote mattered because I live in Alabama. So in the primary, I did vote for Bernie. That's who I was hoping would take it. I don't think that, I do have concerns about some of Bernie's policies because it's difficult when his tax, basically how he wants to operate government is revolutionary. And so you have to essentially pass everything in order to make the whole entire thing work. Everything is so interdependent, and the government doesn't really work that way. Like, stuff doesn't pass that way. So I do have some concerns about that. But I did like him. But when it came time for the general,
the guy had a bird land on his podium while he was giving a speech. Did you see that?
I heard about it.
Ugh.
But
if that's not a sign, what is?
But when it came to the general election, I also thought it was super important that liberals and Democrats and independents who are more left leaning show up and vote for them. Like, I don't like Hillary really. And so I wasn't really excited about voting for her, but I did because I felt like that was what I had to do. And I'll be damned if it's Joe Biden. If Joe Biden is who wins the primaries, I will go and vote for Joe Biden, even though I don't really want to vote Joe Biden because I think it's the right thing to do. So
here's the thing, everybody. Stand up and use your voice.
Yes.
Right?
Are we ending on that?
Can I get a hallelujah?
That's usually where my stream ends, so I don't know where to go from here.
I think that's a good note to end on. Casey, this was amazing as always with you. I look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Guys, I will be in about 15 minutes. I'll pop in on the Discord server for about 15 minutes. And then me and Ben are going to go enjoy the rest of our night. But I want to pop in and say hello to everybody. So if you're on Discord, make sure that you go to the Him and Hangouts. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. And I'll say hello and see what's going on. Casey, do you have anything that you want to announce closing out? What you got coming up? Anything like that?
I'm doing school, I'm doing work, and I'm doing this. So, I'm excited to start, even though these cold cases kind of suck, because they're hard to listen to. I'm interested in going through some of these, and hopefully at some point we can get some people that were involved or related or something like that to come in and talk.
Glad you said that. I believe this coming Tuesday we actually will. So,
excellent.
Casey, it was a pleasure. Guys in the chat, and for all of you watching, I love you so much. I appreciate you watching. If you didn't catch the message at the beginning, any super chats that went through tonight, I will read on Thursday when we do when GE and I talk to G-Man about LGBTQ issues and slavery in the Bible. So don't get offended if I don't read it tonight. With my setup, I'm kind of like janky, so I wasn't able to pull those up, but I will definitely read those on Thursday. So yeah, Casey, do you want to leave us with some wisdom while I watch? I gotta walk over here very nonchalantly to hit the end stream. So you sign us out.
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice.